the implementation of the 24-hour economy policy, the specific question about how this is addressing the fundamental issue of unemployment and with the rollout of this policy, what are we going to see?
Very, very well. So, Alfred, once again, thank you. Before I proceed to answer how this is going to help address the issue of unemployment, let me put on record that President John Dramani Mahama is not proceeding with this 24-hour economy policy on an ad hoc basis. Let me point out, in the past, what has created a challenge is that we roll out policies, we roll out interventions, and now possibly begin to look for the problem. And that is what has created some level of policy dissonance over the period. This time round, if you notice, immediately President Mahama took over, he appointed the respected Busitando to spearhead this issue of 24-hour economy and how to accelerate. So if you look, there are two major things, not only the 24-hour economy, but also to accelerate the issue of export. With this integration, what President Mahama's focus is not only to create jobs, but to also expand the economy. An expansive economy is what will create the needed demand. And Dr. Zato sought to create the impression that when there is no demand, a policy or an incentive in and of itself is not enough. Whereas it may be true, having observed generally what has happened in the past, what is not in doubt is that because this one is tailored right to industry, we strongly believe that a work that one person can do from 8 a.m. and close at 5 p.m., if you create the needed demand, and which we strongly believe exists, then you can have a situation where if it's 5 people who are working from morning to evening, then you can have another set of persons working from evening to possibly deep into the night. And classic example, you notice that in this country, electricity generation, whether we are using it or not, gets generated. And so in the night, what the policy, for instance, with this is going to do is that at night, you are giving the person the incentive that, look, if you are paying maybe for every kilowatt of power that you buy, maybe you are paying, say, $2 for it. At night, because you want to ramp up productivity, by employing a few more hands at night, you will get to pay electricity, say, $1. That is an incentive that you already, but for this policy reason. I think it's also important to make this point forcefully, that immediately President to this task, what he did was to reach out to as many people as he can, from the Association of Ghana Industries, experts, CSOs, among other people, captains of industry, to appreciate from their end how this policy, if rolled out, will get their buy-in. And thankfully, this is not going to be one of those policies where a few people will sit in a classroom or at a workshop and say, look, this is what we have for you. Take it or leave it. No. Mr. Busitando reached out to our people, got their buy-in into the policy, and today the president has launched it. Now, if you watch carefully when the president put the launch, did the launch, one of the things that he said is that even for transportation, and Mr. Gustitando used a classic example of the Volta Lake, right? We have not put that natural resource to good use. Because if we are able to do that, Alfred, we can have, so for instance, and I'll give you this example, you can bring, because it's exported, accelerated export, when you bring goods from outside to Tema Harbor, because there's a multimodal transport infrastructure, you can pick it on the railway line, straight to Impakadan. At Impakadan, you can get those items picked directly to, say, Bupe. They are taken out there straight to Burkina, Mali, and others. So you can have a situation where things begin to flow quickly than it used to be in the past. The Godwin economy that we have always complained about is grounded on extraction and exports without more. And so if you look historically, even our railway infrastructure were limited to what is called the triangle, you understand, where the raw materials are produced straight to the port, nothing more, nothing else. That Godwin railway infrastructure that we picked is the same as we have today. But the president is saying that no, when we take our cocoa to outside, we only get chocolate from Switzerland and the rest. The value addition is not done by us, but that is really where the money is. That is where the money is. So President Mahama is saying that it is not just a 24-hour economy, but an integration to have a full cycle economy. So that, for instance, the gold produced in Ghana can also be changed into all the valuable items in this republic, job creation. And then you can also have value addition. So tomorrow, when you go to the big shops in Switzerland, in the US of A, among other things, the necklace you say should be a Ghanaian brand produced by young people of this country, by creating jobs also in the country. That is the only way we can grow this economy. That is far distinct, and I say this, from the implementation of, say, 1D, 1F. Alfred, please, in the name of God, you are into research. Can you tell me, 1D, 1F after 8 years, which of the products, which is produced out of 1D, 1F, can you say that within 8 years has generated for this economy, say, $100 million? I just want to have that learning this morning. And so we may talk about what has happened in the past, and in direct response to my senior brother, Zato. Yes, it's true. We've had 1D, 1F. But you see, the policy silos that we have in the past did not allow us to do full integration. And so you see, when the regime is gone, everything is basically gone as well. I want to address something quickly, Alfred. One NPP MP, I think lawyer Bafo or something, has raised this issue, and I think it's worth considering, that we should put the 24-hour economy into a full legislation. And the whole thing is that once we get Parliament's buy-in, and then there is a legislation backing it, then you can have, like the way you have NPA, an authority. You can equally have an authority headed by, say, maybe a CEO and others, to oversee the implementation of such a laudable project. You do not want it to be like a secretariat in the office of the president. You want a situation where it is elevated to the status of an authority. And once you have an authority and a director general or whatsoever to see the implementation, they can probably also coordinate. What President Mahama is interested in is anything that will create jobs for the millions of our young people on the streets. A person who has finished university should be able to immediately get work. But you see, there are very low-hanging areas that for the 24-hour we can start. For instance, as I speak to you, my good brother, the CEO of DVLA, has started some 24-hour points of service, particularly the one at Adenta Aviation, where you can have all the services performed by DVLA getting on there. As I speak to you, the Director General of Ghana Ports and Harbour, Brigadier General Paul Tani, has started the 24-hour port services. Look, the time lost in keeping our ports closed because it is night, we have gone past that. When you go to MPS, the Meridian Port Service, and the activity they perform there, it is 24 hours. And so there are low-hanging fruits that even without bigger incentives, we can already start with it. And President Mahama is determined. If the ports are going to operate 24 hours, what it means is that you need as many hands as you can. You need security people to help. And I want to come zero into my own place now at the National Petroleum Authority. We have set up a team to advise on this 24-hour economy within the downstream petroleum sector. They have come out with very, very beautiful ideas. Alfred, we are looking at two scenarios, and because we are also looking at the issue of job creation, even if you have self-service point, which runs 24 hours, you need people to man it. We're also looking at a situation where the traditional fuel stations that we have can also work during the night. What is key for them? And when you speak to COMAC and their members, their proud concern is the issue of security. When they are working at night, armed robbers will not come and say, give me your money. No. By so doing, the president is now put in a situation where he needs to recruit more persons to be police officers who create the needed security for our businessmen within the petroleum downstream. And so, Alfred, I can assure everybody that this is not going to be a mirage. The president is determined to leave a legacy, a transformative legacy, particularly when it comes to the issue of job creation. Alfred, I cannot conclude without raising these fundamental issues. Because Prof. Bokin is on the other side, and my own good friend, Dr. Tio Echampon. Look, the first thing President Mahama did, with the appointment of my brother Sami Jenfi at the Gold Board, the Honorable Lato Forsen, Dr. Johnson Isiama, what these three individuals have done together is to ensure that today there's a better management of the Ghana city and its relationship with the US dollar. The Gold Board particularly had also helped in stabilizing, because in the past, the economics was that let cocoa board take our cocoa outside and go and syndicate loans into the country. And so this syndicated loan eventually will provide some support for the Ghana city. But from 2017, Alfred, to 2024, let me say up to 2023, you would notice that annually, the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Bawumia were annually giving the Ghana city $2 billion of Eurobond support. So the city was effectively dependent on steroid. which steroid had to do with annually injecting at least $2 billion as a support platform for the city. So you notice that from 2017, when we did the Franklin Templeton 2.25 billion,
Yes.
the subsequent year we did another 2 billion. Subsequent year, 3 billion, which eventually culminated in the media razzmatazz, which where media people were said were the KK and whatever parts that were successful at Eurobond markets. That is how government in the past supported the Ghana city with steroids.
Right.
So the Ghanaian city was effectively on performance enhancing drugs. And so if you observe, from April to June to August, the city feels a bit strengthened until we'll be waiting for October for the syndicated loan, by which time Ghanaian businessmen will begin to do their import orders. And by so doing, it begins to have ripple effect on the Ghana city. We've done that model for 8 solid years. We ended up by relying, when in 2022, we wanted to go to the Eurobond market, and unfortunately, we were downgraded. It moved the Ghana city to almost 17 cities, and inflation at 54%. That model we worked out, and we have seen that it never worked. And so President Mahama with his team, Sami Jefi, Dr. Siama, Atufosin, and their technical advisors, what they have done now is the use of the Ghana gold. Effectively, what we are doing, unlike in the past, where you take the dollar out and expect to sell it out and expect to get, this time around, what they are doing is that they are buying the dollar with Ghana cedis. Simple economics, demand and supply. Because you are purchasing it in cedis, you don't need, quote unquote, more cedis, more. In the past, if you are buying in dollars, you need to mobilize more Ghana cedis to do or to change into dollars in order to do the purchases.
Right.
This time around, no. And that is why you see that there is no downward pressure on the Ghana cedi. This model, my prayer, is that we all encourage the persons at the helm of affairs that will continue with this model, so that once we get the dollar, it stays in the Bank of Ghana thing to help even for fuel purchase. And let me link it to what I do. Every month or within the month, the bulk oil distributors go to Bank of Ghana, right, for what they call forex auction. If there's no forex in the system, the pressure will come and the price of fuel will rise up at the pump. But because of this intervention from Gold Board, the finance minister, and the governor of Bank of Ghana, at least the forex side today looks relatively stable. So it is something that is doable. And this is a direct response to my brother, Dr. Zato.
I see. Oh, well, thank you. But then again, there was a fundamental, you referenced the gold board and gold reserves. The Bank of Ghana within the week put out that gold reserves had hit 32.99 tons as of June. That's fourfold surge.
Do you know that this number in the whole of 2020?
Yes.
Alfred,
quick one.
Do you know that the whole of 2024 gold purchase, right? We have already exceeded that in 6 months. And so this whole gold board structure put out by President Mahama is a game changer. The gold board has come to stay. And you see where President Mahama started the initiative from, by first legislating it, putting it in law. And once it has the force of law, it matters not who you are. You have seen in the news the arrest of Chinese, Indians, and others who have taken over the market. No, you cannot do that. It is a regulated industry. And so I have no doubt at all in my mind that for the next 4 years with President Mahama at the helm of affairs, we are going to ensure further stability of the Ghana city. And when that is done, I am very confident